I'll just, okay. Oh my gosh. I couldn't think of a better guest to launch this journey than Ekaterina Popova, an artist, author, mentor, and the powerhouse behind Create Magazine. Kat has inspired me personally and countless other artists around the world. Our conversation today is about something that feels so vital, which is the importance of giving space for artists to thrive. Kath, thank you so much for being here and
Thank
for
you.
accepting this. I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for taking the time and helping me launch this Decoding the Flow podcast.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be here. Thank you so much for thinking of me. And I love everything you're doing. I love the book that you wrote about decoding the flow and your beautiful art. And I'm really honored to be here. Congratulations on your new project.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And also, the book is actually going to be relaunched again. So, we'll talk more about this in the
Ooh.
future. But let's start with giving a space, giving artists a space to thrive. I think you are such a pro and you've been doing this for so long. So, what does a space to thrive means to you as an artist and as a creative leader?
Yeah, that's so important and something I'm currently working on. What a great question. I think it's really rooting in the spirit of abundance beyond just, money. It's not just about money, but time. And I noticed lately that our relationship with time and money, if we have scarcity issues, can really come through. And I think for so many people, they busy, myself included. I'm not a perfect person. I'm still learning too, but we busy ourselves with so much, we feel like we need to be doing more, painting more, and creating more. And even especially now with social media, we need to be posting more, 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 more. And there's just never comes a point where we feel like we are on track. We always feel behind. And I think in order for us to thrive, we really have to understand that there's nothing we need to do to be worthy of thriving. And it is
Mm.
about protecting those pockets of time, which is the hardest thing. I'm telling you, as like an artist and business owner, it's the hardest thing to do because there's always ideas. People want to do things and projects, and so I think I love this idea of thriving, and I think it just comes to like really practicing discipline. We always think of discipline as doing more, but I think it's actually like really protecting that space, what we need to make art or pursue our business ideas or whatever it is the person is working on.
I love that. And it's so true. It is something that I've been learning too because we think we need to catch up. So this give us a lot of like anxiety.
Hmm.
Like every time I go on social media, it just give me that sense of like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing enough, da 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 da. And that inner sense of plenty that I feel like we all as artists and as humans, that inner sense of plenty that we all need to focus on and nurture. And maybe this inner sense of plenty is just doing nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's so hard because our mind always thinks that, like you said, and this isn't something that's our fault. Like you said, when we open social media or we see other successful people, we see everything they're doing. But actually, a lot of successful people, the reason why they are higher level thinkers is because they carve out time to think and to actually, be that person rather than just doing all the things and going
Mm.
through the motions. So, I love that.
Yeah, the embodiment piece, right? Carving that discipline, and discipline, it can be like two or three things that will actually move the needle in your business and just really be consistent into that and really aligning what you have your vision in your life in the future, just really aligning and removing everything else that does not align with that future version of yourself. So
Yes, I love that.
thank you for sharing that. It's really, really important. And I have another question. How can, which I think will bridge really well with what we are talking about, but how can artists create that space for themselves even when resources or support feel limited? I feel
Yeah.
like we have all this social media and we have so many opportunities, but we still feel small sometimes. How can you guide an artist who may be like starting out to actually find that security and that it become resourceful within themselves, not
Yeah.
looking for any outside things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great question. Thank you for asking it. And I think that is the hardest thing too. You're asking all the hard things. So, I've been having a lot of conversations this week with my clients too, especially ones who are just starting out. And there's this misconception that, while you're balancing a day job and maybe your goal is to become a full-time artist, or maybe, even if it's not your goal to feel like that professional artist, you think that you need to be doing more. And yes, there is a degree of, some people call it like the 10,000 hour rule where you clock a certain amount of hours. But beyond that, even as you're on your way to that mastery, I think it's just about like knowing that that is who you are and knowing that no one can ever take that from you, right? And thinking
Mm,
backwards. And I shared with a client recently, thinking of a really successful artist, if they haven't painted or logged into social media that day or that week, even maybe they were on like a silent retreat where they couldn't, right? Does that mean that all of a sudden they're no longer successful and they're not an artist? No, it just means that they weren't taking action on that area. And that doesn't mean anything about their identity. So it has to start with us thinking backwards from the person who we want to be and becoming more secure in ourselves, knowing like if I walk
mm,
away for a day or a week or even a year, it doesn't mean that I take away that identity, unless it's by choice, unless you decided you don't want to be an artist anymore and you're moving on. That's a different thing than saying, I'm pausing, I'm researching, I'm resting, whatever that is, or having a baby, that takes a lot of time away as well. That doesn't mean you're not an artist unless you decided you're not an artist anymore, right? And the same thing goes for social media. The content that we post doesn't necessarily mean that our work is good or that it's going, just because we post doesn't guarantee success. But when a successful person shares their work, people respond, right? So it always has to come from us and we have to make that decision. I think it's the hardest thing to do, but just decide we're now becoming this person, even if we don't yet believe it, even if there's no evidence, but we just have to make a decision like, I want to be a person. And a great metaphor is like signing up for a race. Most of us did at least a 5K, right? Where we say, okay, I'm going to run a 5K, or let's say a marathon. Let's say I never ran in my life, but for some reason I'm like, okay, I'm signing up for this marathon. From the day that I sign up for that marathon without even running, I become a runner because now I know I'm going to have to show up and do that work. And the same thing when we make that decision, like I'm going to be a successful artist or writer or coach or whatever, we make that decision even before we have our first painting made or first client. Like we're now becoming that person and we're thinking from that place, right? So I think it has to start from there.
Yeah, I think it's really important that the whole part that you were talking about, that the way that we see ourselves, it's actually going to to reflect on the outside world. So if you see yourself, which happened to me like for long, long periods of my time in the past, like seeing myself as successful but not quite, like it's still trying to figure things out. If you really see yourself is still trying to figure things out, all of your actions are going to reflect that self-image that you have within yourself. So that's why it's really important to align the future version of yourself. Like you're saying, if you really want to become a successful artist, it doesn't matter where you are, but you have to take actions as a successful person. And everything is like you have to believe in yourself first, and then the outside world will reflect that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of universal laws on this too. There's like the law of mirrors or
Yeah.
reciprocity. And it's really interesting to study. I mean, whether or not you believe in that stuff, but it's
Oh,
just like basic.
100%,
I
Kat.
know you do.
We can
I
sit
know you
down
do.
and
And it's
talk
so
about.
real. And it's so simple too. It's like we already know these laws like on a very basic level. When you meet someone and sometimes even though they have everything on paper that's amazing, but you still feel something's off, like you just sense that energy, that insecurity or fear, like we can all because like a lot of our communication is nonverbal, right? So it's so interesting
Mhm.
how that works.
Yeah. When you write something or when you're painting and then you come in front of the camera and start talking, it's like completely, it's another identity, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, like to really sit down, like, okay, I am doing my first episode of podcast. I really have to look into myself and really like see what is my most authentic version, because I think authenticity also go along with everything that we are talking about. Like you really need to, that what you paint, everything that you decide to paint, the way that you speak on social media, the way that you dress, everything kind of relates to your authenticity. And the more you can find who you are and what's true to you, the easier it will be to express it.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree. I love that. Like not trying to be, and that's the thing I want to kind of explain too, or I guess go elaborate on is yeah, it's like being that person, but it's not about like faking it till you make it. It's just trusting yourself that you're going to get there and you can still celebrate where you are today. Because I also notice with artists, sometimes they're like, well, I'm not going to post because it's not good enough yet. But I say, start showing up and celebrating where you are right now because we're always in a way going to be growing. Like, we're never going to just like be the best forever. You know, it's
Mm,
like we're going to learn something new and we're going to improve. And it's always, or sometimes we might have an off day and it might not be as good. And that's okay too. It doesn't change who we are and our worthiness.
yeah, and it's so true. Like for me, for example, like um, continuing that conversation of like the perfectionism, what really is, it is a fear in disguise, right? Like for me, even launching this podcast was like, if you watch all of the bigger podcasts today,
My
I could have
God.
just really stopped myself. It's like, hey, I don't have a team, I have nobody, I'm gonna edit and I'll have to do all this thing. It could totally like just stop me. And then I really sat down, I was like, you're like, I think you said something and really stick to me in one of our Queen's call back in the days, like your best work is still ahead of you. This
Mm-hmm.
is like so brilliant, and you can really fuse that to everything that you do because this is really the truth. And I love that. If you really have that in mind, you're just gonna keep mastering and mastering, mastering, and you remove all of the limitations, and you remove all of the self-doubt, like, oh, is this good enough? Am I good enough for this? It's like, no, just let me just master this. Let me just practice. Let me just see how this is gonna go. Well, let me just see where this is gonna lead me to, because we all need to be a little bit open to different ways that we can grow and become the artist that we want to become, right? There's
Absolutely.
so many avenues. It is insane. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it is overwhelming too. Like we live in such an information age, but it's a lot of it's really surface level, especially now with AI. Anyone can pump out so much content. And you're right. I think it's just about like just trying to be your best with what you have today and knowing that it's
Hmm.
going to keep getting better and better, right? And also when those imposter comes through, like for example the podcast example is a great one because you see these people with, it literally looks like a movie production,
Yeah,
and you're like,
totally.
okay, well, I have my laptop and I have my microphone and that's what I have, and I have my voice, right? And I remember that when I started the podcast I had no idea what I was doing too, but I was like, well, I just have something to say and I really want to say it.
Mm,
And that's enough. And I noticed with myself, I wasn't necessarily listening to those big, flashy, super produced podcasts. In fact, I was listening to the people that I knew or my coaches or whatever. And that to me was inspiring. And
hmm.
I didn't need to see a whole video. I didn't
Yeah.
need to see this whole big production.
Yeah, that is really important. To start with what you have and do the best that you can with what you have. Do the best. I feel like this is another thing that goes back into the laws of the universe. They call it the certain way in a few of those metaphysical books. It's like the way that you do something, it really matters. It really will reflect into the outcome. So if you like are scared of painting a painting, for example, if that's the energy that you put it into it, you're gonna have a really hard time finishing it or even liking it or even selling it, right? So
Yeah.
the energy that you put into it, you really have to be inspired, like in a spirit, right? Like my mentor today, she always say you have to be in a spirit, which is inspire. So really focus on that future version of yourself and try to infuse in everything, even like washing dishes.
Yes, absolutely. I've been hearing a lot of those teachings lately too, and it's so true. It's because we hear that that same law is like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And we
Mhm.
might think, oh, it doesn't matter, it's just a painting, whatever, but it does. And I noticed a big difference in my career when I used to come and create from this energy of, oh, I hope this sells. I hope this gets into the show. I hope they like it. I hope I get a lot of likes on this. That energy was so weird, first of all.
Yeah.
Then when I started just being like, okay, I want to make this painting that I see in my head and I just want to see what I can do and get it out. And then I would enjoy the painting and I'd be like, oh, yes, that satisfying feeling where it clicks. And then when I would share it, I would actually get those results as a byproduct. It was like the side effect of that energy that
Mm,
I was pouring into it. And it's so hard to explain this to a new artist who's not familiar with this concept because they're like, well, how do I start selling my work? I'm like, yes, I can tell you exactly how to sell your work in 5 sentences right now, but that's not going to mean anything unless you really
mm.
feel into this energy. Like it's already sold. My only job is just to be my best with this canvas or sculpture, whatever they're making.
Yeah. It is so true. It's all about energy, right? Energy doesn't have spaces. Another thing that I do, that I see with some artists, they get really busy into selling their work and doing fairs after fairs and weekends after weekends, going to this and going to that and going to that. And I had a client that was like, I'm getting tired of this. It was like, well, maybe you just check with yourself, like, is this gonna result on like a few sales, or maybe if I decided to stay in the studio and paint a big painting, which one would be better? I always think that artists should prioritize, yes, selling art is incredible and it's amazing, it's a necessary, but mastering your art, it should be number one priority.
Yes, falling in love with the process because that's really what matters. And I had that conversation with myself a few years ago when I almost quit. It was like during COVID and my nothing was wrong, nothing bad even happened at that time, but I just felt like, oh, what am I even doing this for? It's like the ego sounds in your head, like, oh, I'm not getting the results that I want. Like this didn't happen yet, this didn't happen yet. And then I just had to check in with myself. I'm like, why am I even doing this? There's so many easier ways to make money. Like art is not one of those things. And it can be easy, but in the world speaking like generically. And then I just had that conversation with myself. I'm like, you choose to do this. And are you willing to do this even if you never get paid for it? Like, let's just
Hmm.
say we win the lottery and we never have to worry about selling or social media. You just get to create and share it in whatever way. Like, yeah, I would still want to do that. And I think if you're not willing to do that in that case, then maybe it's not for you. And that's okay. Because like that art is just it's not like a job. It's not a task. It's just like a way of living and seeing the world. And so if you're not willing to just be that, like live as an artist and see through the eyes of the artist, then it's going to be really tough to keep going because the outside validation is not that often.
Yeah.
It happens and it's beautiful when it does, but that's
Yeah.
not most of our day. Most of our day is
Yeah.
us facing our work and ourselves, right?
Absolutely, is us becoming that resourceful for ourselves. Like we need to be our first cheerleader. We
Yeah.
cannot expect the outside world to say, "Hey, this is beautiful. Let me buy all of this work." Sometimes it might happen. Of course, we will celebrate. But what about the inner, like your inner message, like what you are trying to say with your art, right? Like the
Absolutely.
message, the energy that you put in, the love that you have for the artist, which we can do a whole other podcast about being an artist and falling in love with our art. It is also has some nuances to that because I also think this is the idea that artists paint for the love of the art. Also, a lot of times they can keep us broke because we think love is enough, the love of the art is enough. And then if you say, like, I want to become a millionaire, like people are gonna look at it, but you're an artist. Like it doesn't match, right? And that is
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. So that is
Yeah.
kind of like a big stigma into, yeah, artists do for love. And then what happened? Like artists accepting working, not putting the right price because they think love is enough. So there's like a few nuances that kind of goes around, like artists like not really valuing themselves for the sake of
Yeah.
the love of art,
No, that
right?
definitely comes up, and that is like a whole other issue. But I think that's like a deeper next level, like of
Yeah.
course. But I think when you're starting out, you do have to love it
Yeah.
because to get to those
100%.
things. But yeah, you're right, and those things can exist. You can want to be a millionaire and be an artist. There's many examples of that, and that's the other job of us is to research. Like when our brain tells us like that's not possible. No, like these people are doing it, and they're a person just like me. That means it's possible for me too. But one other thing I want to say on the topic of like loving your work and being able to keep going with it, even when it gets tough, is that when during COVID, I was going through like this healing journey, and one of my coaches, she suggested that I go to the studio like through the eyes of my inner child, with my inner child, like, and speak to my paintings with like pretending my inner child, like little cat, was there with me, and think about how differently I look at my work, saying like, oh my gosh, you made this. This is so amazing, wow, like you created this, instead of that inner critic always like, oh, this needs to work, this isn't good enough, like, oh, I need to fix that. Like that inner critic is important for us to grow and improve, but we also need to be gentle because that part of us that's so sensitive is always there, and we're constantly hard on ourselves. That can be something
Yeah.
that prevents people from keeping, their practice going.
Yeah, this is so important, the inner child and the healing part of the whole art practice. When I do I teach art for adults. I do this kind of like a step-by-step painting process during 2 hours. And I always say, like, if you never painted before, and if you judge yourself after your first painting, it's literally a child abused. I think I read that at the Artist Way, and
Mm.
it's really stuck with me. It is really, really true. Like, why are you judging yourself? Like, first of all, like art is, I never judge art. It's such a like a personal, it's a personal taste. Some people may love it, some people may not. So it's very subjective. So it's
There's
really
no
important.
rules either. There's no like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's some certain, elements of art making, like composition, blah, blah, blah. But like some of that, you can always break the rules anyway. And some people successfully break those rules. So you're so right. Yeah, you have to be kind and trust whatever is coming out of you is what's supposed to at this time.
Yeah. I always say like listen to your body. Like sometimes we can be listening to so many things, but listening to your body sensations while you're painting can lead you to a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let me see if I have more questions. I absolutely do. We can keep talking about this, but this is, I am very curious. If you had a magic wand that you could create anything for yourself and for the art world, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a great question. Oh my gosh, I might be thinking about this for a long time. I thought about this, for me, it would be really great to see a little bit more transparency in the art world. And honestly, like to me, it's not really important anymore. It was when I was younger. I wanted to be part of the bigger galleries and I wanted to be in museums. But the more I get to know myself, the more I realize that's actually not really a big value for me. If it happens, amazing, I'll celebrate, but it's not something I'm working towards anymore. But
Mhm.
when I see some of my friends who are in the gallery system and museums and all of that, and some of the practices that go on really upset me, and there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and there's no transparency with how things are priced, telling artists they can't make work because it's not selling, you have to just wait it out. Like there's a lot of almost like oppression on the artist, and I understand the galleries need to survive and maintain the prices and things like that, but it doesn't seem like there's any like regulation, and I don't want it to be like
Mm,
super government regulated thing, but at the same time I would love to wave a magic wand and have like a place where have people upload like their sales, their
yeah.
shows, and what's going on. What they don't have to like share everything, but something to keep us all on the same page, because it's really shady sometimes, and it's when I hear these artist stories, it's really upsetting. One of my friends was promised a big show with this like blue chip essentially gallery, and then they basically just ghosted her, and she said no to a lot of amazing opportunities because they thought they
No.
wanted to be exclusive. And so stories like that make me really upset for the artists that they were promised the world. They made decisions that inevitably slowed them down a little bit. I know everything's fixable and everything's going to be okay, but That's the kind of stuff that I wish we had more transparency on. But
Yeah.
that could be said for any industry. But I think because the art market is so confusing, so big, and there's no rules at all. Like, in the bank system, there are some regulations. Like
Hmm.
for us, there's none. So that gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah, and it sort of create even more distance. Not even just the artist itself, but even the buyer, right? The artist buyers, the collectors.
Yeah.
Like like if you see like this big galleries, this big museums, like I don't feel connected. I admire everything, but I don't feel like we are on the same field kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? It creates a distance. It creates that mystery. It's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
and who
very
makes these
interesting.
decisions? Like who sets the prices? Who makes the moves? Who says what's successful, what's good or not? It's like this hidden mysterious world, which maybe that's part of the allure for wealthy people that they're in this mysterious world, but I think for the artist it's not always a good thing.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so much, Kat. So for those who may not know your beautiful journey yet, can you share a little bit about your work, about the Art Queens Create magazine, and also your art? Because it's like you have so many beautiful avenues, and I'd love for you to share.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been such a joy to chat with you. And yeah, so first and foremost an artist, and I spend as much time as I can painting. But I also love to serve the community. So we have Create Magazine, and we have several open calls and juried opportunities a year, as well as we do try to have some free ones for our community as well. We have the Art and Cocktails podcast with free tips and interviews. Now we just added a Substack as well with some helpful articles. And everything can be found at createmagazine.co. And then, of course, we have our membership for women artists called the Art Queens, where we meet a few times a month and connect and share resources and support for one another. And it's going to be almost 6 years. So
Six
time is
years.
flying by.
Yeah, I think that's when we start connecting because I remember I was one of the first members of the Art
Yeah,
Queens.
thank you for joining us. It's been so
Wow.
amazing to watch you grow and blossom and evolve as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that any last message that you would like to share? I think this Decoding the Flow, the main reason I'm creating is to give artists another opportunity to thrive, right? Also serving as a bridge, connecting collectors and artists. So
Yeah.
any art lovers that are just getting started collecting, or any new artists that would love to live by their creative gifts. So do you have any last message they would like to share with us?
I do. I think for the collectors, I think just to appreciate, even if you're not purchasing, like a comment or the fact that you're looking at someone's work. On Substack lately, I've been sharing my daily paintings. And when someone says, I look forward to your posts every day, like it means so much. Of course, it's really great to be supported financially. And if you're art also brings beautiful energy to your home as well. It's not just about the process, it's the actual like energy of creation
Energy.
on the canvas. So I think it's just really special to us that people see us and appreciate us. And for collectors, just from the artist's perspective, and I also love to collect art when I can. Just appreciate the fact that you guys support us, and please keep keep supporting us. It means the world. And for artists, I think just fiercely protecting our energy and our creative time, and knowing how valuable our work is, because I was really thinking about it when I was looking at my daily paintings. I was like, it's like life force. Every day I spent like a little chunk of time, like putting my
They are
life into this
adorable.
little tiny thing. And that's really special. And I think we forget how special that is when we spend time with our work.
Yeah, I also collect some work and from artists I admire. And you really feel the energy. Like I really sit down and get my coffee every day, and the only thing that I look at it is into those art pieces that I have. So it is really magnificent, that creative energy that you can bring into your home. It's amazing. And when you paint, like what is that dopamine hit that you get when you first finish a painting? When you like
Yeah.
finish a painting, and I love where your 100 days. I'm actually joining the
Yeah.
100 days. It's starting very soon. it's like that dopamine hit. You get so excited. I couldn't find anything that share that same energy as finishing a painting. It's amazing.
Yes, it is the best feeling. Highly recommend. And also for some people who are just starting, sometimes it's like scary because you don't know when a painting is done. Just keep, you'll feel it. You'll just know. Like I get like this feeling like it's done.
Mhm. It's a knowing. It's a inner
Yeah.
knowing. It's like, okay. Or maybe
Yeah.
if you're in doubt, you can just wait 24 hours, like turn
Yeah.
around the
Walk away.
painting, walk away, and go back next day with fresh eyes and really look into the canvas. And then you can kind of like with fresh eyes decide what to do next.
Yeah.
Kat, thank you so much. I will put all of your informations on the notes. Have a
Thank
beautiful,
you.
beautiful weekend. I appreciate you and keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate it. You've been serving and your art and the community for so long. And I just want to share my admiration and thank you for doing what you do. I
Thank you. And
appreciate
right
it.
back at you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the encouragement and for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.